Hello, we're going to learn how we interpret the planets in vibrational astrology. This is lesson 6 in a course on the introduction to vibrational astrology, but this tutorial video also stands by itself, so you do not need to watch it in the context of the entire course. Now, the first thing I want to emphasize is that in Western astrology, the way the planets are interpreted typically is as archetypes. So here we're looking at a chart wheel, and we see Saturn in the 4th house in Sagittarius. What is Saturn? It's the first thing we need to think about is what does each planet do, and then we can think about what it means for whatever Saturn means to be in Sagittarius, to be in the 4th house, to be making a trine aspect to the sun, and so on. Excuse me. But first, the planets are like our fundamental things. What does each one do? And the way it's usually approached in Western astrology is that Saturn is the wise old man. It's reserved, detached, wise, challenges us, presents us with tasks to see if we can overcome them and mature. So Saturn is this quality that's difficult to limit to a simple linear explanation, and the way Saturn expresses itself varies depending on context, whether we're talking about a personal relationship, a career, work, a sport. The Saturnian quality that's relevant to that situation comes to the surface and becomes involved. So the language of astrology is a language of becoming familiar with these kinds of qualities, these archetypal fundamental elements that cannot be narrowed down into some kind of linear, simple explanation. And through experience, we get the feeling of it, of what it does. And most of it is very common sense, so it's really not all that difficult. So the Venusian qualities, for example, of beauty, they're going to show up in romance and art, anything that's beautiful and sweet. We instinctively understand these archetypes because those qualities are in our lives. So that's the idea, and that seems fine and seems to work fairly well. But in vibrational astrology, we're introducing another idea in addition to this. What we introduce is this, is that behind the archetype, there is a basic force. So behind the beauty of Venus, the art, the romance, the different qualities of Venus that come out in different situations, there's something behind that. That romance, that art, whatever it is a manifestation of something that is a force, that has a purpose, that is a kind of a process, like a verb. It's a kind of fundamental action of life. And so what is this force of Venus that gets expressed in art and romance? It's really so simple. Attraction to beauty. What happens in romance? Many things happen. One of the things that happens is a tendency that people want to feel near the romantic partner. It's like a magnet. The partner feels like a magnet. So like draws you to be closer to them. Same thing with anything that's beautiful. When we see something beautiful, like a beautiful scene of nature, a beautiful mountain, a beach scene, whatever it might be, beautiful fields and forests, we're drawn to them. They're like magnets. So same thing with art, is that beauty is inherently attractive. It magnetizes us towards it. It's a fact of life. And Venus regulates our attraction to beauty. It gives the quality, the way in which we are drawn to beauty. So we have this idea in vibrational astrology that there are facts of life, givens. It's a given that there's beauty. It exists. And that beauty is attractive. And also, we think of Venus very often as emotion. It's the feeling emphasis. But to be attracted to something beautiful, you first have to see that it's beautiful. The symmetry, the harmonies, the blending of the colors, the vibrational feelings that and qualities that come across. So there's actually a mental or a perceptual aspect to Venus, that Venus instantly detects symmetry. Like a symmetrical face is more beautiful than an asymmetrical face. And our eyes open up and we're drawn to it. So Venus is the recognition, the perception, and attraction simultaneously of the beauty. Now, is there any practical difference in our interpretation? If I think of Venus as this archetypal quality that we experience in romance and art in many situations, or if I call it attraction to beauty, does it make any difference? The answer is yes. It will make a difference. And as we get into the meanings of specific aspects and what each planet does, we will see that this approach of looking at the planet as fundamentally a force, and the archetype is like another layer of an onion. It's the force is more fundamental. It's at the kernel, the heart of what the planet is doing. And then in the human experiences, the archetypal stories are generated out of it. And there are also very specific and clear consequences from this way of thinking. So art that focuses on our perception, our understanding, like a cubist art breaking up space into different geometric shapes, or other kinds of art that challenge our way of thinking or perceiving, they're more mercurial, because the purpose of the art is not primarily to draw us in by its sheer beauty. And artists who do a kind of art that challenges our perceptions and thinking will have stronger Mercury or other things than Venus. So Venus is the attractive power, and that's what we see it doing in any situation. Now, here's another example of thinking about the planets in terms of being a process, a function, a force, primarily, and the archetype being a manifestation and development of the fundamental force. The force is always true. Venus will always be attraction to beauty. It will not necessarily be romance, art, or anything else, but attraction to beauty will play a fundamental role in the chart of a person who has a strong Venus. We'll learn how you determine what a strong Venus is later, obviously. Now, let's look at one more example, the Sun. Physically, the Sun is over 99% of the mass of the solar system. Physically, the Sun sustains life. In the solar system, the Sun is hugely more important than the planets. It's the center. Everything's going around the Sun. But in our astrological interpretation, the Sun is not given that huge emphasis. In a lot of astrology, like a lot of Vedic astrology, the Moon is considered to be more fundamental than the Sun. Why is it that the Sun is so much more important in biology, in the physical nature of things, and less important in astrology? The reason is this, that when you understand what the Sun does as a function, it is 99% of the chart. But in our lives, it's taken for granted. What does the Sun do? Now, may sound a little abstract at first, but once you get used to it, it's very simple. Just like Venus is regulating attraction to beauty, the Sun connects us to time. Time is like a string. It's like a rope that goes way, way back in the past, and we are all attached to one moment in that line of time that goes off into the future. We don't know how far into the future, into the indefinite future. So we are all experiencing this moment in time. I mean, that's a fact. On just a common sense level. You can get into some kind of, wild metaphysical philosophy and, think about it some other way. But just on a normal, plain, everyday experience, we all share a moment in time, and that moment passes by. You know, it just it comes and it goes. So we're all sharing this moment. It's a fact of life. We don't usually think about it. We just take it for granted. The sun regulates our attachment to that timeline. It connects us and makes us present. It makes us conscious. Because without the sun, we're like some kind of amorphous consciousness with no boundary, no point in time. And that's why when we look at the sun in vibrational astrology, wherever we see the sun, if we see a sun-Jupiter aspect, a sun-Mars aspect, what does the sun tell us? Is it an archetype of Apollo, of power, or does it have just certain qualities? What we think of is, oh, if the person has a sun-Jupiter aspect, Jupiter's getting connected to the present, to the here and now, to what you see is what you get, to the clear light of day. And it becomes a part of the person's daily life, of what they do, of what they experience. There's nothing esoteric. There's nothing hidden. There's nothing, you might say, mystical. There's nothing subconscious about it. It's a shining light. It's now. Here you are. Clear, direct, connected to the now. So the sun is giving consciousness. It's giving awareness. It's giving being. Without the sun, the whole rest of the chart is meaningless. Because you're in some kind of disconnected, cloud or something. So one interesting thing about the vibrational astrology is that things begin to make sense and they all fit together. Okay, well, my point here is just to introduce to you this concept that what the planets do is they regulate some fundamental fact of life. And why do we use these interpretations in vibrational astrology? Is it based on some kind of philosophy? Why do we do it? No, it's not based on a philosophy or a theoretical preference. We use it because it helps us interpret charts better. It's completely pragmatic. We get better interpretations. We can go right to what's going on, focus on it, and see what's happening. And the interpretations end up being simpler and easier because we don't have to hunt around for different things. Is Venus romance? Oh, it showed up in art. No, it's that attraction to beauty. If a person has a strong Venus and the art has become too much focused on making money or too just utilitarian, and it's not really that beautiful anymore, or the spark of attraction has gone out of the relationship. Maybe the people understand each other, they appreciate each other, but that magnetic pull to each other is disappearing. The person whose Venus is engaged in that activity, and we will learn how to see the Venus is engaged in it, it becomes not satisfying. Venus is looking for that beauty and that attraction to beauty. We can zero into precisely what's going on. And all of the archetypal understanding is very important as well, because that gives us insight into the ways that these fundamental forces can develop in human consciousness and human experience. So this is huge. This is a very, very, very big part of vibrational astrology, is how we think about what the planets are doing. And once you start using the planets like this, you can't go back, because you see Mars. And people saying, oh, Mars is the warrior, blah, 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 blah. And the person's not a warrior. But the Mars function is there. You'll see it there. And we'll talk about what Mars actually does. And, in a vague sense, it is a warrior, but also Venus, it has all these images like it's, it's not aggressive and it's like a pretty princess or something. Well, being attracted to beauty doesn't necessarily make you passive or anything else. it zeroes you in on exactly what is happening for the person. Okay, so I wanted to make this video to introduce the basic idea of what the planets do. The next video in this series for this course is one that I made a few years ago on the meanings of the planets, but I think we needed this video before the next one so you can appreciate what's being said in the next video. So the next video will be one that was made a few years ago, and we'll go over the meanings of planets, and we'll repeat a few of the things I've said here, but I think this really needed to be stated up front and made very clear. Okay, thank you for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.